Get us to the cemetery, Wang!
We're very close now.
If the golem takes off, you will never see the sword again.
And welcome back to Shadow Warrior. I'm still NLE related, and this is mostly a filler level. Those two statements are not related in any way. The first thing we're doing here is buying the high strain system upgrade for the crossbow. As a side note, I think this joke comes from the original game. I don't remember it being there, but it's definitely within its style. Now, as I was saying, the high strain system, what it actually does is that it allows us to charge our shots.
They're carrying shields now?
Okay, so this fight doesn't really show it very well, but that's because of the singular dickishness of the enemy in front of us. I have no idea what they're called. I dubbed them shield jerks. As you've just seen, their primary attack is a fireball that tracks us, but is kind of slow on turning. Actually reminds me a lot of the Revenants from Doom 2. Another FPS game with an extremely agile protagonist, as well as a lot of secrets. As a matter of fact, this level has 8 secrets, which is the most we've seen so far. They are, however, mostly concentrated around 2 areas, one of which is this. We got the statue in the canal, we got this rather shittily hidden blood pool, and we're about to collect another one, right after dealing with another set of shield jerks. Okay, so Shield Jerkology 101. This is their second attack. They wave their staves for a little bit and then fire upwards. The result is something resembling an artillery shell. It's not that dangerous on its own, but it will become really annoying once they start getting paired with other enemies. Anyway, the shields they carry can take a lot of punishments, and the shield jerks are really attached to them. To the point of actually getting rid of the shield, meaning having to cut off their respective hands. Now, the best ways of dealing with shield jerks are quite obviously bypassing their shields, i.e. exactly what I'm not doing here. Environmental damage is pretty good, but given the way the shields work, it needs to come from the left side. Similarly, if you're good at aiming, you can actually shoot past the shield and take off their hands or heads or whatever is just sticking out. This, by the way, is why I love the crossbow so very much. Okay, one of the reasons why I love the crossbow so very much. Nailed is the kill message we get for actually nailing an enemy to a wall. It comes with an immense sense of vaguely phallic satisfaction. This particular secret under the bridge, by the way, is a total pain in the ass. It's entirely possible to come here during your first trip up the hill, and you would quite naturally look into the sewer grates for secret. The thing is, the hole we used to access it won't be there. It actually opens up once we destroy the red key shrine. Finally, we spend our karma point to get a rank of the Demon Slayer perk. What it means is that we do 10% more damage to small enemies. Small enemies being anything under the size of a warlord. In the next area we get to fight the human SWAT team. I have no idea why they're there, but I wish there was more of them. Fighting the humans mixes up the pace of the combat very nicely, and it's a shame the game doesn't resort to it too often.
I adhere to a strict code of non-violence, except when it comes to humans.
Plus, it's a complete joy to hear their screams of pain, as opposed to just demons grunting or whatnot. Now, as I was charging my katana here, you might have noticed something about it. I haven't really talked about it, but the special moves have 2 levels to them. Once the button input is done and Wang's katana starts glowing, we can just let go, or we can wait a bit and charge until symbols appear along the edge of the sword. If we let go, then the resulting attack will be considerably more powerful. Bit of an overkill there, I think. Anyway, the last wave of this fight consists of shield jerks, so let's get back to our experimenting with them. As you can see, the shield can quite easily take a Divider of Heavens to the face. Certain katana slashes can, however, bypass it. If we cut off its left hand, the shield jerk is left... Oh wait, that's right hand, isn't it? If we cut off the left hand from Wang's point of view, the shield jerk is left to rather ineffectually bashing us with the shield. which also leaves it wide open at certain intervals. Okay, enough screwing around, here's how you actually deal with them. The keyword is magic. Flux and Shockwave both make them completely defenseless. Flux is obviously better at it because of a bigger range. This is not, however, trivialize the fights with them with any way, mostly because if you're focusing on taking on shield jerks, who are pretty much a supporting type of demon, you're not dealing with the other enemies around. You know, I said that this is pretty much a filler level, and I stand by it because it's pretty unnecessary to the actual plot progression, but a filler level in Shadow Warrior is still more fun than a climactic fight in most AAA shooters. And those fights with all the fireworks and lightning and body parts flying around look simply amazing. At this point, even watching the video to do the commentary, I can tell I was having so much fun just dashing around, switching weapons, murdering demons. And that's kind of touching on a topic I was saving for another level, but this game really lets you make your own playstyle. Come get some wang, you ass! That was all of them, wasn't it? Yep.
It's like a road movie. I go from place to place, killing everything in my path.
Okay, so here's a somewhat funny story. Someone in the thread was posting about how I don't use the auto-loot system, which is enabled by default, and insist on picking up every single item of ammo or pile of money by myself. It actually turns out I had the option turned on the entire fucking time. And the only reason we all had to suffer throughout me picking through the contents of various cupboards was the sheer stupidity of yours truly. Oopsie. Anyway, this next fight takes place in a huge wooded area I'm making a point of not using. The reason is pretty much that vending machine I blew up a couple seconds ago. Raiden kills, yada yada yada. Still don't have it. The demons we encounter there, or at least the basic kind, seem to be wearing more armor. I'm not sure whether this is cosmetic, but they do seem to take a bit more punishment before they finally croak. Of course, this may be caused simply by the fact that they come pre-enraged. Informative LP, this ain't. The layout of this particular arena and the fact that the demons keep spawning on pretty much the opposite ends of it forces you to move around a lot, and while the melee enemies actually come for you, the Birdmen don't, and it's very possible to just forget about a Birdman on one side of the arena only to have it shoot you in the ass a few seconds later.
Watch out! This'll go boom!
Right now, it's time for the most obvious secret in the game. See if you can spot it. Yeah, I'd be worried if you couldn't. I've said before that this is a filler level, and I still maintain that nothing would be really lost if its dialogue and some of the set pieces were integrated into the next one as opposed to having a chapter of their own. However, the environmental transitions here are really nice, and some of the locations are incredibly pretty.
You really don't remember what you did to get banished?
No idea. My memories of it are like a blank wall.
I got kicked out of the Amati Roxy Club for life. I can't remember that night either.
Is that supposed to be comforting?
Again, no idea what that joke was about. Enlightenment, etc, etc. I would like you, however, to take note of what Hoji said right here about him having no memories of why he was kicked out. This is important for later. As of now, you might have surmised that this is much more Hoji story than it's Wang's, and while Wang does serve a purpose, rather than just throwing around jokes, it won't come until much later. I still maintain this is a really well written game, but the pacing somehow feels off. You might have noticed that I got a level up. I didn't. If you're bothered by my somewhat maniacal switching of weapons, I do apologize, but this is a reflex I can't seem to be rid of. It's a bit of a deformation. I used to play a lot of Counter-Strike 1.3 and I still very much subscribe to the mindset of knife makes you go faster. And it shows, especially when there's nothing really going on. The first part of this area is pretty much collecting all of the remaining secrets. Well, all except one, that is. The retro area we're in is rather special. I've pointed out the Dark Wood sign, and that comes from a rather iconic level from the original Shadow Warrior called Dark Woods of the Serpent. It was the final level of the Shareware episode, which, at least where I live, meant it was the last level that anyone played. It also featured a rather cool boss fight. The level I took here was another point in Demon Slayer, adding 10% more damage to small enemies. This may not seem like much, but it adds up and it will be extremely helpful later on, when we find ourselves positively flooded by shield jerks. Anyway, back to what I was saying about the environment. We started in the middle of a ruined city, and as the level went on, we kept moving through the woods towards this shrine area. Now why couldn't Wang just drive here is beyond me, but... Oh, back to actual relevant stuff. I'm buying the Match Crate Barrel upgrade for the PDW, which adds 25% more damage to it. The PDW is kind of interesting in that it starts incredibly weak, but its upgrades exactly cover its weaknesses. Oh, and now to perform a sneaky assassination. Not like that, Wang. The target seems to enjoy a hot bath. Let's test its endurance.
Go, boom!
Okay, so I thought it was cool. These little ovens can be found in quite a lot of houses, and they can be turned into a surprisingly potent weapon. Speaking of, there is some rather odd discrepancy between the environmental explosives here. We have the big barrels labeled TNT, and they do little more than tickle demons. Those lamps, on the other hand, are a fucking death trap. Now, I can afford to play a fair bit more aggressively than I normally would, because I actually have some armor. The armor pickups are kind of sneaky, they look like a full suit of armor, but it's pretty dark and you usually don't even notice that you got one. But they go a long way towards ensuring your survival, or at least giving you enough time to heal up. Now to showcase a detail I noticed just lately, pay attention to Wang's hands as I charge up the circles of iron. Okay, you probably missed the first one. The point is, you can do a circle of iron to the left or to the right, and Wang will strike a different pose depending on where it's aimed. I thought it's cool. And an almost perfect score for a long and protracted fight. I have to admit that, apart from the couple of exploits that already have been discussed, the scoring system of this game is pretty much a mystery to me. And I think this is our first encounter with a multicolored door. We need 3 key shrines to unlock it.
Locked. I'd rather be kicking ass than solving a stupid puzzle.
Now, I may quite possibly be the only FPS player to ever admit this, but I actually like color-coded keys. Anyway, the key shrines are all in nearby vicinity. 2 of them are in fact in the lake, basin, whatever, where we're right now. The third one requires a bit of backtracking. And of course, each one has an ambush waiting for you. The red one is just shield jerks and regular demons, so back to what I was talking about. Color-coded keys. I hear a lot of complaining along the lines of color-coded keys, where are we, Doom? But people seem to forget that Doom was a really well-designed game, and color-coded keys gave it a sufficiently natural way of steering the player and altering the flow of the level. And that was achieved without the player actually getting lost, since, after all, you knew where you had to go once you actually found the key. It gives you a sort of an objective. Now, modern shooters, they give you actual, real objectives that make sense in the context of their stories. However, way too often, these objectives are just means of railroading. People seem to forget that with colored keys, you don't actually have to force linearity. Take this situation, we have 3 key shrines, and we can tackle them in any order. It doesn't matter here because they're all close to one another.
Shall we dance?
Right, back to the matter at hand. This fight actually involves a couple of the flying demons we've seen in the last level, and this time we don't have a turret to deal with them. We can kill them with the PDW or slam dunk. Now, I realize that this looks like a joke situation that I set up for the sake of the LP, but if you actually play the game on a higher difficulty, you'll find out that relying on having Wang jump upwards and divide there something that you really shouldn't be able to reach is actually a key strategy to your survival. Personally, I find the fact that you can do something like this in an FPS and that it's even useful a pretty good testament to how well this game is made. Okay, back to renting. The idea behind the keys is that they are flexible. You can do so much more with them than with story-based objectives. You can have them hidden behind one another, you can have multiples of them in an area, you can have them forcing split paths. And of course you can do the same thing with actual reasons to be there, actual objectives. But show me a game that actually bothers with this. With keys it's simple, and all it requires is a bit of suspension of disbelief. Meanwhile, a secret I forgot to pick up the last time I was here. On one side, again, it relies on having destructible environment in a game that normally doesn't have it. On the other hand, those barriers are kinda unique and you don't really see anything else like them, so you'll probably think that something is wrong with it. The last key shrine is actually accessible from the very beginning of this area.
Well, look at you. Mama's little demons all grown up.
The ambush here is pretty weak, but it gives us another look at how terribly inefficient those TNT barrels are. Maybe it has something to do with them being sunk in the water, maybe TNT gets wet, I don't know. Anyway, to close off what I was talking about with the colored keys, I think having them is as much of a message for the developers as it is for the players. It forces a sort of design that can't really hide behind big plot set pieces. We couldn't do this, we couldn't make this non-linear because it would ruin the story. It actually forces you to put thought in your level layouts. And that's something I believe missing in a lot of modern games. The skill I'm buying here will unlock a new weapon down the line and jump cut.
Is it me, or are you actually enjoying yourself?
Man has to take pride in what he does best.
You really put the ass in Mass Murderer.
What I cut out was backtracking throughout the whole temple area to the newly unlocked door. Wang is most definitely not above stealing from shrines. I'm not sure what Buddha says about that. Anyway, as we're on the final stretch of the level, I'd like to put a bit of a reverse disclaimer, if you will, on what I talked about here. My only experience with shooter design is having played a shit ton of them, so if you think I'm talking out of my ass, it's because I am.
I like my demons like I like my coffee, in puddles all over the ground.
The charge-up crossbow actually really reminds me of another vastly phallic weapon from another Polish arena-based shooting game called Painkiller. I'm not sure how big the Polish FPS development scene is, and whether it's just inspiration, or whether some people from People Can Fly are actually on Flying Wild Hog. I simply don't know. However, there is more than one parallel. This Chi Crystal, by the way, I'm not going to use right now. I don't like it. It is consigned to a really shameful fate in the next level. Someone had to do it. Your sacrifice will be remembered, Chi Crystal. Anyway, we're at the end, and as the fortune cookie says, live Wang and prosper.